Since the awakening of human knowledge, we've come to understand things through the answers to 6 basic questions. Who, what, where, when, why, and how. These questions, if pursued with dedication and competence, promise to lead to the truth.
So I had a friend who committed suicide.
But when my own friend took her life, so much of what I thought to be true no longer made sense.
I knew that if she had been given a second chance, she wouldn't have done it. That it was an accident in some ways.
Yeah, I would disagree with you.
Well, you'd have to examine it.
I can tell you there's always signs, there's always clues, always, always, always.
At the time of my friend's death, Las Vegas had the highest suicide rate in the entire country.
Let's check out this fucking view here.
Shit!
Levi Presley killed himself by jumping from the observation deck of the stratosphere.
There were 295 suicides in Clark County. Levi was one of those.
Just 3 days before Levi died, the United States Senate supported a bill that would move the nation's nuclear waste to a mountain just outside of Las Vegas with unknown unknowns.
The ones we don't know, we don't know.
You belong to the generation that will manage high-level nuclear waste.
Wow. 70,000 tons of the most lethal atomic leftovers.
70,000 tons of death.
I love America.
If the truth came out, they'd all be screwed.
What we're running up against is the limitation of human knowledge. We don't want to hear this. Because there have been some philosophers who committed suicide thinking about questions like that.
The who, what, where, and how, they're answers to those, not the why.
Let me ask you this. What will you do if you do find out?
This much we know.
All right. All right. Well, this is the first time we're meeting, I believe.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Surprise. Where are you based?
I'm in Brooklyn.
You are. Huh.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I have been missing in action for a couple of years now, but you go to a certain number of screenings and documentary festivals and events, and you feel like you met just about everybody. But it's real nice to meet you.
Yeah, it's great to meet you too. I think we met briefly. My producer Keith Miller.
Keith is a friend.
Yeah, you interviewed him for, I guess, Welcome to Pine Hill or something years ago.
Yeah, and also the next film after that as well.
5-star.
Yeah, 5-star, and we did a few events and Q&As, and as a matter of fact, welcome to Pine Hill.
Yeah.
Now I live right not far from that area.
So. Oh wow! Oh, that's a nice area.
Yeah, it is nice.
Yeah.
So you tell me about that. How did you meet Keith, and how did that happen? Were you working on one of his earlier films?
Yeah, so Keith and I have actually known each other as friends and filmmaker supporters of each other for many years through the Brooklyn Filmmakers Collective.
Oh, sure, the collective.
Yeah. Yes. So I've been a part of that collective for about, I think, 15 years. And that's been a crucial part of, supporting me and each and every filmmaker within that collective. It feels a lot of camaraderie and it's a great group of people. So, yeah.
I think way back, like this would have been a good 10 years ago. I might have even done a segment on the podcast around the Filmmaker Collective.
That sounds familiar. I think you did. Yeah.
Yeah. Keith would have been there. Yeah. And a few of the filmmakers, a couple of the other filmmakers. Anyway.
Yeah.
How many degrees of separation are there, for Pete's sake? Anyway.
Not that many.
This much we know.
Yes.
So tell me, let's talk about This Much We Know. It's your documentary. I'm very excited to let people know that it is going to have a theatrical run at the Firehouse at DCTV starting November 10th, which is very wonderful that you're going to have a theatrical and that it's there, such a special venue.
Yeah, I'm really excited to first have my premiere in my hometown, my home city.
Yeah.
And the Firehouse is a beautiful cinema. I'm very excited to have it screened there. The sound is great, the visuals are great, the community is amazing. So I think it's going to be a great run. And then we'll also be in LA shortly after that.
Oh, where are you screening in LA?
That is a good question. That is undetermined as of now, I believe, but we're working on it.
Yeah, Lee wouldn't maybe know about that, but we have Sydney Tanagawa here, and I'm just kidding. Why don't we talk about, but let's talk about your film. It's really kind of this interesting hybrid of the really personal and also not so personal, shall we say. It was originally kind of inspired by this book. It's not a novel, it's like a personal essay, I'm assuming, by
John D'Agata.
Right? Was it a personal essay he wrote? And yeah, experimental essay itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
So my backstory with how this film got made is that in 2005, I lost my friend to suicide quite unexpectedly. She did not show any signs of distress whatsoever. And then, a week before she died, I talked to her and she was very cheery and we were planning to get together later that year. And then a week later, I learned that she took her life. So I carried that kind of confusion and that grief for many years. And a couple of years later, about 5 years later, someone recommended this book About a Mountain to me, which is about suicide in Las Vegas. At the time, Las Vegas had the highest suicide rate in the entire country.
It doesn't anymore?
It doesn't anymore. I believe, I'm not exactly sure. It's interesting to look at where the high suicide rates are. They seem to always be in like the Midwest area, that beltway. They've done a lot of work over the years to reduce that so that they're not known as the suicide capital of the year, but for many years they were. And at the time of my friend's death, they were. And the protagonist, or the main character that we focus on in the film, Levi Presley, at the time he died, it also had the highest suicide rate in the entire country. So I was interested from a personal perspective to go to the city that had the highest suicide rate to try to understand what causes someone to take their life. That is also what the book explores as well. And parallel to that story, this boy who took his life, Levi Presley, that same week he took his life, the US Senate voted to support a bill that could possibly store the nation's nuclear waste in a mountain right outside of Las Vegas, in a mountain called Yucca Mountain. And so running parallel to my exploration of looking into why someone would take their life, looking into all of these studies that have been done about suicide, what causes suicide. Also running parallel to that is these scientists who are studying a mountain and if it can safely store nuclear waste for 1 million years. And how the two relate, although they don't seem to really relate on the surface, they relate in a way that is very human, deeply human, and that we're always trying to get to answers of big unknowns, and how do you arrive at answers of really big unknowns? So how can you possibly have a specific answer to why someone took their life? They aren't here to respond and say, confirm it. And can you really know if a mountain can store nuclear waste for over 1 million years? So it's about exploring, how we grapple with these great unknowns and how we find answers.
And ironically, the title is This Much We Know.
Mm-hmm.
But and it's interesting that the young man, he lived did he live anywhere near Vegas, or did he travel to Vegas?
So Levi Presley lived in
Levi
Las
Presley.
Vegas. He was a resident there.
He was, right?
Mm-hmm.
But your friend was not.
She was not. No.
So she traveled there.
No. So my friend took her life. She lived in South Carolina. So that's where she took her life.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry.
Mhm.
Okay. And do you but I was curious about Vegas in particular, because you said earlier that they took steps to kind of reduce or to grapple with this issue, since it was obviously a big issue.
Mhm.
And I'm wondering,
Mhm.
because that approach might be scientific.
Yeah.
Like, you have
Yeah.
data, you have empirical data about
Mhm.
what's going on, and you can kind of approach it scientifically in terms of trying to find a solution for it, rather than necessarily humanistically or
Yeah, and that's a really good point, is that the film grapples with these two ways of understanding things. One is from an emotional truth, something that you instinctually know
yeah.
or emotionally know. And then the other one is through the scientific analysis. So looking at the numbers, looking at like over the 1 million death reports that came out one year, and they ran it through a system,
Yeah.
called statistical analysis system,
Which I
and
found really fascinating. Yeah, part of it, like, yeah,
so they came out with this
patterns and trends, right?
Looking at patterns and trends, and they came out with the result that said, basically, if you live in Las Vegas, it increases your chance of wanting to take your life by 50%. But then other studies that came out shortly before that were, complete opposite results. So saying that there's no link, to suicide and gambling, that this increase in suicide is completely can't be proven, like however you link it to gambling or not, like cannot be proven. But then the study shortly after that said that just living in Las Vegas would increase your chances of suicide. So I find that interesting, that even in a scientific analysis, that there can be discrepancies, like huge discrepancies, because we always trust the numbers as being like the absolute answer. But especially when you're grieving someone's death, those don't often help. What helps is more of an emotional comfort and the emotional truths that can't be proven.
Right. Or
Although
you have access to, because once
Mhm.
somebody, especially if someone who is considering suicide is you have no sign, they're not showing any signs of it or sharing their inner thoughts, then you're left
Mhm.
with no emotional way of making sense out of it. Whereas if you can talk to your friend and find out all the things that are bothering them, like you just want to have some sort of, this is the way I would feel. Like, I'd want to have make sense out of it, and then I could sort of potentially help that person or do something, or spot it with somebody else or whatever it is, you know what I mean? But you didn't have that at all.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So that is what haunted me for many years,
Yeah.
because there was a moment in my life where I thought I knew everything. And then when she took her life, that completely fell away and I didn't know anything. And that kind of void that I fell into was very disturbing to me. Because it was completely it just took the floor out from under me.
I imagine also, and I don't know if this is something you were thinking about in terms of the science, but here you brought up the other component of the film, which is the storing of nuclear waste, the long-term solution, which was burying it in a mountain. And of course, it's a facility. It's not, you're not just, digging a hole in the ground. But then you find through your, I mean, I don't know how much you want to give away, but we find that it's in a really long term, it's not necessarily something we can guarantee or is guaranteed that is safe. If you're talking about 1 million years. And so if the scientists aren't even really knowing what they're doing, that also is kind of terrifying, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I would argue that the scientists, at least the scientists that I spoke with, the chief engineer of the project, who worked on the mountain, studied the mountain for his entire career, so over 30 years, he would argue that he does know. He knows absolutely. But he would also argue that there's a certain percentage of unknown, the risk of that. And that's true in any part of life. Nothing is guaranteed. Yeah, nothing is guaranteed. And so I was really challenging this this stance that he had, that the numbers can give us the best answers, and trying to explore that, trying to break it down with him while standing in front of this mountain that he claims to know every inch of, and just trying to get him to admit to the fact that we actually don't know. As much as we do know many things, we have to admit to ourselves that we're doing the best that we can, but we're just human,
He's
and
a scientist and you're a filmmaker, so we make our beds.
Yeah.
In a way, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like, having made the film, did you feel in lieu, rather in is that the right term, in lieu of closure, did you evolve in terms of your figuring out or making sense of your friend's suicide?
I think similar to what I was getting at with the scientist, I did arrive at an answer myself with my friend, in that, before her death, let's say everything was certain. After her death, nothing was certain. So this concept that things are either black or white, they're yes or no, they're guaranteed or definitely not guaranteed. And grief has the effect of forcing you to live within a gray area. Like, you don't know anything. You have to admit to yourself that you don't know anything. And that living within a gray area is extremely difficult, but extremely real. Like, it's the most real way you can live, So I think, expanding out beyond the film, I think we've been living in this bipolar kind of, political world. And we've survived a ridiculous presidency and absurdity, and maybe we haven't survived.
I mean, I think
but absurdity, it's become absurd. Like, it's not even that, like, one political party believes one thing and the other believes the other thing. That is true, but there's an absurdity within it, because neither are actually totally correct. And if we were to coexist within this gray space a little bit more, that's not as certain, then I think we could live better together, but we have to both embrace that philosophy that nothing is black and white, nothing is certain, and that there's a kind of like reverence within the gray area. And I think when I felt myself, that grief being lifted with my friend, it was when I acknowledged that, that I might not ever know, I won't ever know, but and I have to embrace that,
Yeah. But this was a journey in trying to figure out why she made that decision, but it ended up being figuring completely other things out about yourself and about the world in the process. It sounds like This Much We Know.
This Much We Know.
We know it's a great title. Frances, your film again, This Much We Know, is opening at the Firehouse Cinema, which is relatively new. I think it's been around for about going on 2 years soon. And I remember being at the break when they kind of broke ground there at the corner there on Lafayette, like 8 or 9 years ago or something like that. It took a while, but now it's this amazing place, and people should go out and support this film. And you'll be there, obviously. I assume it's 11 November 10th rather, which is a couple of Fridays from when we're speaking. And you'll be there on the Friday and probably Saturday to do some Q&As maybe?
Yeah, actually, Deborah Granick, filmmaker Deborah Granick, will be there to do the Q&A. She'll be there.
Not so bad.
Yeah, she actually caught the film when it premiered, had a New York City premiere at Doc NYC last year.
Oh, it was at Hot Docs, which is coming around also in November.
It was at Doc NYC, and Deborah caught the screening there, and she was just floored by it. So she offered to do a Q&A with me to discuss it more.
That must feel good.
Oh, it felt amazing. I really respect her as a human being and as a filmmaker.
Yeah, me too. I mean, really enjoy her film. She did this podcast. I have a terrible habit of saying that whenever somebody brings up a name. It's like a mild case of Tourette's or something, where I just feel compelled to let people. Oh, they did my show.
Yeah.
I'm glad to connect with you now, and I hope you'll come back on and talk about your next project or anything for that matter.
Thank you. Love to.
And I am a big fan also with your world premiere is at the Camden International Film Festival, which is a beautiful festival. I was there at the festival. I think it was the year before. Well, right before the pandemic. I had this fantastic. Do you know Michelle Negroponte?
I don't know.
Great film.
Yeah.
But yeah, we went up there. It was a fantastic festival. So congratulations all around. Sounds like.
Thank you.
Wish you much success with it.
Thanks so much, Adam.
Oh yeah, and Oscilloscope is a great distributor. So that's nice. Good. Congratulations.
Yeah, I mean, I think the theatrical run life right now is pretty dismal. I mean, we're in
It's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
You'll qualify, I suppose, for whatever one would qualify for. Having
Yeah.
theatricals. You'll have an LA theatrical. TBA.
Yeah.
We'll keep people abreast of that too. It's coming up probably a little later in the fall.
Yes.
Okay. Well, again, thanks. It was great meeting you.
Nice to meet you too.
See you again, I hope.
Okay, sounds good.
Take care. All right.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.